Hey folks, that's Brendan. I'm Parker, and this is Lobby Concessionals, the movie podcast where nobody's right and everybody's wrong. Click those buttons on the bottom of your screen, the like, the follow, the subscribe, the whatever else, and check out our website if you are interested in hearing more, or any of our socials.
I like the change up there.
Yeah, right?
Good.
I
That was
figured.
smooth.
Thank you. Thank you. Today we're doing a after the credits. We're to finish off sort of our weird A24 month. There was some random stuff plugged in there, but I wanted to start us off with Marcel the Shell, the newest A24 release that we are lucky enough to get in Canada as of like a week ago, even though I'm pretty sure it released to...
It's like 3 weeks late, right?
It's like, I think the true wide release was like July 1st. But it actually released in the end of June, is my understanding.
Okay.
So
I know we had looked for tickets.
Yeah, like
earlier,
a month ago.
and it was just not happening.
Yeah. So, anyway, Marcel the Shell, starring Jenny Slate and Dean Fleischer-Camp, which was based off a YouTube short, or I think a series of YouTube shorts that they made 11 years ago on YouTube. I know, right? And they tried to adapt it into for the big screen.
So, I'm a huge Jenny Slate fan, and I didn't know about the shorts. So you showed me the shorts.
I did, yeah.
And I was really disappointed in myself for not knowing that they existed because they're great.
Well, but there's no marketing or anything for it. Like, it's not like this was a character that has continued for the last
I guess
decade,
so, but like,
you know?
I guess because of her stint on like SNL and the popularity of things like Lonely Island and Donald Glover and those guys, you just figured you'd stumble upon it or something.
Yeah,
something,
fair enough.
right?
Fair
or at least
enough.
I would, because I follow those circles.
Yeah.
So I was disappointed. I'm like, I never heard of these before. I've never seen them before, and they're great. They're awesome. So everybody should at least go watch those.
Yeah, I would recommend it. Now, that being said, though, I do have to say, you do not have to watch them in order to watch the film.
That's a good call.
They've like incorporated all of the story of those shorts straight into the film. It is truly like they took the short films on YouTube and they adapted the whole story of it. So the entirety of that is covered. In fact, there's even a couple recreations of moments from those shorts.
Right.
And it's a stop motion featuring a shell named Marcel that has shoes.
Spoilers.
And, yeah, he's voiced by Jenny Slate. And one of the big things I noticed is the change in stop motion quality from the YouTube shorts to this film was noticeable. So I was a little worried that there wouldn't really be a need for this film to exist, given that they're rehashing the story, you know?
Yeah.
Now, granted, there is a bigger story. There really wasn't as much for the shorts. So that is in itself helpful and useful. But the stop motion quality in itself convinced me that this was worthwhile. And oh my god, it was hilarious.
I haven't laughed that much in a theater in maybe since Booksmart.
Yeah, that would probably
that would be the last time I laughed that hard in the theater. And the thing is like I'm probably laughing the whole way through. And because the humor is so understated, I can only pick out like 3 moments.
Oh, totally.
But I know the whole thing is hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wouldn't say the whole thing. There is a couple extremely tender moments that are, again, amazing considering that the main character is a anthropomorphic shell. But yeah, it's definitely not the whole thing. The other thing that's really worth noting is an incredible performance by Isabella Rossellini. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. By playing the character Connie, who is Marcel's grandmother.
Soul crushing.
Oh yeah, incredibly well done. Again, especially considering like it goes back to the how incredible and frankly underappreciated voice actors are. Yeah. Like just how much performance and work goes into that performance. And yeah, it was extremely well done. I could really just gush about this movie. Like they did an amazing job bringing life to these characters, making you care about them, making you like they feel like they're people I could know. I think is one of the big things, considering the fact that they're not even people.
That's the thing is, very, very quickly you forget that it's not real.
Yeah,
very quickly, and I thought that was really surprising. I had to like shake myself a little bit sometimes, and even it's weird because again he goes through day-to-day things, and they're not normal day-to-day things. It's his way of kind of making his way through the world, and you're like, yeah, that's how the world would work if you were a shell.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you get lost in it like right away, and it's weird. Again, it's just a shell, so there's not world building.
Not
or
really,
anything
no.
of that stuff. It's just like it's just him adapting, and you immediately adapt with him. And I was completely lost in it right away.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Usually in this segment, we typically do spoilers, and I just want to point out that we are avoiding that, and I think partially that's just because I don't think a lot of people will have seen this film. So we wanted this to be accessible, and then secondly, I think the bigger thing is that I don't want to ruin this film for people.
Yeah.
Like, I think some of the movies we've discussed in the past are typically a little bit more popular. So usually by the time we're releasing an episode, people will have had an opportunity to see it, or at the very least, they have a good idea of what's going on anyway. Like, there's plenty of other spoiler material on the internet. Yeah. Well, this is something that I think will have been preserved.
Yeah. Well, it's just we very, very rarely do we do a review where either it's not a movie that everybody has seen in the first week.
Yeah.
Or seen before 4 months ago or a year ago or whatever like that.
Sure, absolutely.
But this might be the first review we do where we actively need people to go see this movie.
Yeah.
To go find it.
Yeah.
To go see it.
That's important, I think. And like, I have no idea actually what the budget is here. I'm sure I could look it up, but I assume this movie was made for basically a shoestring budget. There's effectively no marketing for it.
Yeah.
So all we can rely on is word of mouth, which is why we are pushing for that, because I do think it's important for us to go see these films. I've mentioned this in a couple of our A24 episodes, just about the fact that people cry for originality in filmmaking, but the numbers do not back up the fact that people want original filmmaking.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. It is something you can bring the family to. It's something you can, like, anyone really realistically can enjoy. It's not even a long movie. It's an hour and a half. There's really no downside here. It's funny. It's heartfelt. It's incredible.
It's all ages.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So I don't want to sound like we're, shills for Marcel the Shell.
We are.
But I don't mind being a shill for Marcel the Shell, even unpaid.
I'm working on commission.
Oh. Well, then.
You negotiated that contract wrong. Yeah.
I did not do it right. That up. Yeah. Anyway, very, very well done.
It shot into my top 3 this year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, easily.
Wow.
Easily.
What does that top 3 look like? No particular order. I'm not going to put that on you.
Well, I'll give you an order.
You'll give me an order?
I'll give you an order. I'll give you Marcel at 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you The Northman at 2.
Mm-hmm.
And as of right now, I'll give you Top Gun Maverick as 1.
Oh, boy.
And I know that sounds ridiculous, and I didn't expect it to be there, and I don't want it to be there.
I don't know if I'd mind that it's there.
Yeah, it's in like, as much as a movie like Marcel makes me feel, those feelings I was getting when I was watching Top Gun have not been matched at all this year.
Yeah. And it's funny, we started this podcast with an episode about Tom Cruise.
I know it's not a bit.
No, well, we didn't design it as a bit, but it's coming to a point where it maybe is a bit, whether we like it or not. Even if we have truly, genuinely spent our time shilling for Tom Cruise, like, without it being a bit. Yeah. Again, we've done it often enough that it might just, we have to do it ironically.
Yeah, now. And to be fair, he needs it.
Well, does he?
Yeah, I mean, I think him, Marcel, those guys, they need that push.
Those are the underdogs.
Those are the underdogs.
I am so glad that we found a way to group Tom Cruise and Marcel there. Well, now that you've done a list, I'm going to throw out a quick list as well.
We are the halfway point of the year.
We are like, and honestly, we agree. I don't know if I'd put Top Gun number 1. It could actually be, I would probably put Everything Everywhere All at Once at number 1. I'll give you a top 5. I'll put Everything Everywhere All at Once at number 1.
Here comes
probably followed by Top Gun. Then I would say followed by The Northman.
Yeah.
Followed by The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Okay.
And then Marcel the Shell.
That's pretty good. Solid list.
Yeah.
I don't think I could give you a top 5 right now if it was if you gun to my head. I just put Top Gun 2 more times.
2 more times. Wow.
He needs it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But again, I don't typically like cementing down a ranking system like that.
I know.
So
I know it hurts you.
yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. I'll wait till our year-end review.
Oh man, I'm just not doing it. I just won't show up. I'll make Allison do it for me. Yeah. So I guess in summary, Marcel the Shell, well worth a watch. Definitely get out to a theater if you can. If you're in Calgary like us, it is currently playing at Eau Claire and nowhere else in the city. So
I think that's a hearty 4 thumbs up and 9,800 stars.
Yeah.
According to our critical ranking.
Correct.
Episode.
Yeah, I thought you liked decimals.
I do.
So it's 98.00 in your case.
01. Let's just,
okay. You said 9,800 stars. I don't know. Yeah. Anything? Have you watched anything else?
Put me on the spot. No, it's been a slow couple of weeks, and I don't know. If we keep talking, maybe I'll remember something. I have been doing. I know you're gonna roll your eyes, but I have been doing a rewatch of Friday Night Lights.
Oh boy, how's that been
I mentioned it the last time, and you gave me sass for it. It's going all right. Like I understand why that show failed. It comes out.
Does it fail? Isn't there 6 seasons in a movie?
No, there's 5 seasons, and the movie came before. It has nothing to do with the show. I
don't know if we can call that a failure.
Oh no, it's a failure. I'll tell you why. So the first season comes out, and I think it's 2005 or 2006. Really low ratings, basically at the point of being canceled. But NBC is looking for content at that point. So they signed for a second season. The second season's during the writer's strike.
Okay.
And not just that, there's a mandate comes down that says it needs to be more teen drama-y.
Okay.
And it's bad. Like the second season is horrendous. Like when people, it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And when I get people to watch it, I immediately have the caveat of, I'm so sorry for the second season. Like,
wow,
it's not the show it's supposed to be until the third season, which is where I'm at now. And watching through it, you can see it. The first season is finding its footing. You're getting your characters. You're falling in love with them. The second season is a train wreck of Riverdale and Nashville, whatever that weird show was.
Sure.
And the third season it is what it's supposed to be.
It's suddenly Friday Night Lights.
It's finally Friday Night Lights, and there's hints of it in the first season, like a ghost of it in the second season. But the third season is where, and like now I'm starting to go, and I'm feeling the feels and all that stuff. But man, that second season was rough, dude.
I have to say, there is so much good TV out.
Yeah.
And it not only in general, just in the history of television,
yeah.
but secondly in just there's new stuff that comes out regularly that is incredible. I cannot commit to watching a show for 5 seasons when I know that the first 2, like 40% of that show is actively bad.
Well, the first season is not bad. The second season is bad.
Okay, so 20% of the show is actively bad. 20% of the show doesn't have any idea what it's doing.
Yeah.
Like that,
I know.
That's a massive barrier to entry, especially because it's the first seasons. You know, you look at The Office, for instance.
The first season is bad.
And the first season is bad, but it's like 4 episodes.
Yeah.
So most people I know just skip it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really miss much. But even if you really want to, and you were like, okay, well, I want to see where these characters came from, then you watch the first season. Yeah. And then it's not until the last season, or maybe the last 2, that the quality really decreases.
Sure.
So at least with a show like that, there's fairly low barriers to entry, and then you can just stop watching.
Sure.
And you still got the good parts of it, Yeah.
The second season is so bad, you could legitimately skip it and you wouldn't know the difference. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
It would make no difference if you went from the first season to the third season.
Interesting.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah, but can I skip the first season?
No, the first season... See, the reason why the first season works is because it does all the character work. Like, the actual plot and stuff is fine, but the character stuff is really strong. And the reason why you sit through season 2 is because you love those characters that much already.
Interesting.
Right? And that's mostly where Friday Night Lights gets its shine from me, is the characters.
The Friday Night Lights gets the shine from you?
No, whoa, yeah. You know what I mean.
You're welcome, Friday Night Lights.
To be fair, I probably talk about Friday Night Lights way more than most people do.
You probably have driven more viewers to watch it than the actual show's marketing.
Yeah. Oh, there's marketing?
No, well, I assume there was used to be.
No, there really wasn't.
I've never seen an episode, but I knew what it was. So
because the third season, they basically get canceled, and they get picked up by a different, like a stream service or like a cable network TV for seasons 4 and 5.
Man, this show sounds like it sucks.
Failure.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be blowing through that. You'll probably hear about that at least one more time as I finish it.
Fair enough. The only other thing I've watched, there's been a couple like random things. I started Peaky Blinders final season, and enjoying it so far, but haven't really gotten into it as much. Been out golfing too much, so. No, but the big thing I watched that I actually wanted to discuss was The Gray Man, the Netflix original, directed by the Russo brothers, starring Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Anna Armas, Billy Bob Thornton, Jessica Henwick, and Alfred Woodard.
The look on your face excites me.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. I like the Russo brothers.
Speaking of mediocrity.
Yeah. I think the Russo brothers did amazing things with Captain America in the MCU. Especially with Winter Soldier, but Civil War's a big part of his arc as well, and I think they did that really well. And then obviously they went on to do Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. Now they're the writers of both of those as well, I believe, with McFeely, I think is his name. I cannot remember, for whatever the reason I'm thinking Steven or Marcus. I think it is Steven though. Anyway, so to give credit, McFeely is also involved in the screenplay and story.
Yeah.
But so they do the story for it. Obviously, Endgame goes on to be one of the biggest movies of all time. So it's pretty easy to see that they have at least some type of talent, whether that is even just at the bare minimum, they have incredible organizational talent to be able to bring a movie like that with not scale and scope together and pull it off, not flawlessly, but, impressively at the very least.
Sure.
So I was excited to see what more I could get from it.
Because, with that cast, it should be a slam dunk, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways it is. It does very much feel like a Avengers movie or like an MCU movie. There is Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans are just allowed to be in some ways themselves. Chris Evans plays a sociopath, so he's not himself by any means. But but they are just allowed to have fun, and that's seen. So they very clearly look like they're having a good time. I'm sure they had a fun time shooting the movie.
Yeah.
It's a world hopping spy adventure. And so those sorts of things they do decently well. That the characters look like they're having a good time. They are funny or witty at the very least. There's a couple good jokes. They are you just get the charm from those two people.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is great. You need to let your talent, especially guys like that, do their job and be charming and just let it flow naturally. Anna de Armas is in it more than I expected, which is always a plus. And she's great in it. Billy Bob Thornton does a good job. He's in it the correct amount as far as I'm concerned for Billy Bob Thornton.
It's just like an underhanded shot of Billy Bob.
He's fine. I don't know. Like I don't know if I ever need to watch a movie with him leading.
I just don't know. Like if you told that to him to his face, like do you think? I feel like he'd be more insulted than if you just told him he was bad. No. I disagree. I think he's a good actor. Yeah.
But I don't know if he should lead a film. I think is my point.
Sure.
Or at least not now, not at this point in his career. I think he needs to be, a side character.
Right.
And that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And maybe if I was justifying it to him to his face, yeah, he would be more insulted. Now that I'm saying this and hearing how it sounds. Anyway, the talent's all great. The Russo brothers clearly know how to put together some type of film. The problem is that film is kind of the same type. My understanding was following the Avengers, the first film they did was called Cherry, which is based on a book about I believe, a Marine who has PTSD, and he starts robbing banks because he has a drug problem.
Okay.
Anyway, played by Tom Holland. Apparently the movie sucks. I haven't seen it myself. And so I was hoping that, it's just a one-off. The Gray Man is fine. It is definitely better than what my understanding is. Cherry, like, it's better than Cherry was, as far as critics and as far as the things I've heard are concerned. But it is just a okay movie. Like, there's some bits that are fun. I found myself gravitating to looking at my phone because I was bored.
That's a bad sign.
Oh yeah. So I, started making plans with people instead of just watching the movie. There is
Or did the movie influence you to make plans?
It did not. The plans were sort of already in a little bit of progress, but it's tough. There's a giant CGI filled action scene in Prague at one point, and that is just sort of a disaster. There's too much going on. The CGI is fairly good as far as I can tell. Typically I'm not one that notices bad CGI, but the fact is there's multiple points where I don't know what's going on. And it's because everything's sort of a mess.
Right.
And that's a problem. So, it doesn't matter how good your CGI is. If a viewer can't figure out who's punching who or who's shooting who or where people are, there's a problem.
Right.
So given that they presided over two of the biggest action films of all time, it's shocking that they can't pull off an action sequence like this. Now, granted, it's a fairly large action sequence. There's multiple locations. There's set pieces all the way through it. At one point, it involves Ryan Gosling on a tram, like a streetcar, basically, and shooting people in there. On all different levels. On top of it, laying on the ground in it, standing normally. There's a lot of fluid movement. There's a lot going on. There's a few buildings that get toppled, and their debris is actively in the scenes. You think of Avengers, and in some cases, like punch a building, but it's kind of just like environmental destruction for the sake of it. Like, it doesn't really have any consequences, but this all did. So then there's a lot going on, but you don't know what's going on. And eventually it just kind of becomes like a mess.
Maybe it needs 50 more semi-funny people involved.
Yeah, that's probably what it needs. No, like, it's strange. And I think that some of the good sides of Avengers are, or especially what the Russos did, is they would take little teams of them. So they started in Civil War, where they would focus on interactions of 2 or 3.
Sure.
And so instead of it being, let's look at all 16 of these guys punching each other all at once, they would focus on smaller groups. And that let the characters shine. And but you also still had an idea of what everyone was doing, or you didn't need to have an idea what everyone was doing because it didn't exactly matter. You're able to flip between the groups and get an idea of the battle as a whole.
Right.
But you don't actually need to watch Captain America from this moment to this moment. You just need to check in with them a couple times and see the progress. Well, in this case, they have to actually track the progress of Ryan Gosling's character, and I think they again lose some of it in the process there.
Right.
So again, it's fine,
and I wonder if that's on purpose. Honestly, like
it being fine.
Yeah, like in this day and age, I wonder if stream services are looking for things for people to just sit. And I hate the term. I hate the term when people were like, "No, man, just go to the theater and turn your brain off." Like, that's not how I watch movies.
Totally.
So I struggle with that phrase, but I know that it's kind of it is one of the reasons people watch movies.
Yep.
Especially that's why some movies make money. So I wonder if there's an actual directive from something like Netflix to be like, "Yo, I just want a bunch of big name guys, but I want just a paint by numbers movie so people can just turn on and just be at home."
Well, and so that's something I've definitely heard a lot of people talk about with Netflix is they'll recommend a particular show to me or a particular movie, and they'll say, "Yeah, I'll just leave it on and do other things."
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me, but that fulfills what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
It's a paint by numbers thing, and that's definitely the impression I get with this movie. There is, again, some stuff that's pretty fun in it, but it's not a movie that I would outright recommend to anyone. You know, I'm sure that lots of people are going to watch it, and I think that's the other thing that kept hitting me was the fact is, regardless of whether this movie is a good film, Netflix has a winning formula here. Yeah. They shove a bunch of people that already have name recognition and that people are going to watch, alongside the names of directors who have put together the biggest movies of all time. So, that's another slam dunk with a premise that is very easy to follow, that we've seen before. You know, Ryan Gosling is a secret agent, basically, whose name has been erased from the books. He gets pulled out of prison by Billy Bob Thornton at the start of the film. And it turns out he has a heart of gold. You know, like, and it's they even throw a kid in there that's in danger. You know, like
all the tropes.
Oh yeah, and it's just it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
And in this day and age, I think just there's nothing wrong with going out of your way to make comfort watches.
I don't know if I would totally say there's nothing wrong with it. I have a bit of an issue with it, considering the fact that these guys are supposed to be artists, and the fact is there is people that can put together comfort watches. You know, I think that I'd like to think the Russo brothers can do more than this, but
they haven't really shown it yet.
Well, so my argument is Winter Soldier is better than this.
For sure.
And I think there's more heart in that. I think Endgame is better than this. There's more heart in that. Now, granted, both of those are part of an established franchise, an established universe, and those characters have been built up in a particular way leading up to those films. So maybe the heavy lifting was done for them. I would choose to think that the heavy lifting wasn't done in the case of Captain America. I don't think that first Captain America film does enough of a job building up the relationships that the Russo brothers focus on as his arc continues. But it is a foundation. So there is something there. Again, I guess my argument is I know they can be better than this. Now, again, they're having a good time. I can't argue with creatives going out, deciding to make something loud and dumb and fun. And they just
the Ben Affleck saying? One for me and two for them.
I don't think that's just...
it's not just a Ben Affleck.
That's like a Hollywood thing.
Ben Affleck is more like one for him and then five for them.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of that, you know? And I get it. I understand. You know, Ethan Hawke recently said something about him doing Moon Knight, and he thought of what? Oh, God, I can't remember who it is. Paul Newman had said.
Yeah.
About, you know, I still need to put food on the table or something. There's a famous Michael Caine quote that he was asked about a movie, and I can't remember even what movie it was, but he said, the movie sucked, but the house is great. Because he did it for the paycheck. And I get it. I understand. I absolutely do. And
again, gotta talk shit about Inception, Michael Caine.
Whoa. But I do think these people are better than that.
Sure.
And they already did Sherry, which was not well received.
Yeah.
They're doing this. Like, what's the next steps, guys?
Aren't they involved in the Dungeons and Dragons movie in some way, shape, or form?
This would be the first I'm hearing of it.
I thought they were producing it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I give people way more slack when it comes to producer credits.
Yeah.
In particular, I think it's because my favorite director is Del Toro, and Del Toro produces a lot of garbage.
Sure.
But they aren't the creatives. I think it's important in Hollywood when you do make it big to pay it forward a bit, and use a producer credit and do your job as a producer to make sure that you help the other guys, help the small guys. I get it. Absolutely. Don't have a problem with that. So I'm not going to rag on them for that, but frankly, again, they directed Infinity War and Endgame, biggest movies of all time. Netflix was going to sign off on whatever they gave them.
Yeah.
And why did they give them this? I'm like,
and it's gonna, and to your point, it's going to be successful in spite of itself.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
It reminds me of, I didn't even watch it, but Red Notice, the Gal Gadot, Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson.
I just avoided it.
Well, but I think it's Netflix's most popular movie of all time.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
But exactly, like it's a formula, and it was always going to be killer because those people are reliable to do the exact thing they're good at.
So, and how many of these types of movies before we get to rag on Netflix for a formula? Or can we do it now?
We probably can now. Like Netflix, the brilliance of Netflix is they want to be a streaming service for everyone. So they put out content for everyone. And that's fine. You know, I don't even have an issue with them as a company for basically targeting people, like what people like. I understand the fact that not everyone is going to go watch Marcel the Shell versus watching The Gray Man.
Yeah.
Totally get it. And so I can't blame Netflix for taking advantage of some of that. But I can sit here and blame the Russo brothers for, you know, I don't know if I'd call it selling out because they already sold out to Marvel. But for not doing something with more creative integrity, you know, like you have the platform to do it.
Sure.
Take a risk, guys. Do something, you know. And yeah, I don't know. I'm probably harping on it too much.
No, I think it's a nice thing to do, especially, you know, a couple months down the line, we can revisit and be like, hey man, you were right. Like, these are the things that could have happened. And, you know, maybe this is why Netflix is losing subscribers as fast as they are beyond the price point, you know, or let's in a couple months. I mean, we are filming this on the Saturday of San Diego Comic-Con.
Correct.
Currently, or at least in a couple hours, Marvel Studios is about to take the stage.
Right.
Rumors abound that the Russos are coming back, and that Gosling is going to be involved at some point. So I wonder if there's something to be said there about this partnership. Yeah, and who knows, right? Like I said,
I could see it.
If this was a backdoor way of testing that chemistry out, or whatever it is, whatever it might be, who knows? Or at the end of the day, it's just Netflix threw $100 million at this thing, hoping to make back $300 million.
Yep, and they will. Again, like it is a guarantee at this point, really.
Yeah.
And again, if it really comes down to it, the Russos have decided. Russos.
I say Russo.
Okay. I've been switching,
but I've heard both.
Okay. If they decide they want to be the team for Marvel, totally fine. Yeah. You know what? Go nuts, guys. If this is what you want to do, absolutely. You guys managed to do that really well. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like I get it. I understand, you know, working a day job and not being like it not being the thing you're most passionate about, right? Not being your end all and be all. So totally. I understand getting a paycheck, guys. No worries at all. And I would give them a little bit more slack then if the Gray Man is their vacation from doing Marvel stuff. Sure. You know, so it's less hectic, it's less crazy, it's less demanding than an Avengers film is going to be. Yeah. If that's what it is, absolutely, all the power to you guys. But if the plan is to walk away from Marvel and not go back, and
you need to see something,
they need to start doing things that are going to be creatively compelling. Not only for an audience, but obviously for them, and maybe they are.
Does it take away from the previous work if 5 years down the line and we look at this and this is it? This is the movie they make. This is the type of movie they make all the time. Not
at all, in my opinion. I understand that thought, and I think that for future generations, you know, if the Russos keep making these films, saying, "Oh, Captain America: The Winter Soldier is one of the best MCU movies of all time," it was directed by the Russo brothers. Yeah, I understand that someone in the future, having watched 4 or 5 of these movies, will be like, "Oh, it's the same stuff," and then they'll watch Winter Soldier and won't enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
Now, but it does matter. The context of the fact is it came out first. So if that's their template, if that's what they did, and then they're going to keep doing that, which I don't think they are by any means. But if that was the case, I don't think it takes away from the success and how well that film is made.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Again, props to Netflix as a business. Absolutely, you guys did a great job. Right. Props to Ryan Gosling and to Chris Evans and to Ana de Armas for having a good time making this film and for not treating it as anything more than it needed to be. Yeah. And hey, if you love it, you love it. You know, props to the people that are enjoying it. Absolutely, go nuts. And I just wish these people did more.
Yeah,
you know.
That's our episode on artistic integrity.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god. Yeah. So now that I'm depressed, I want to talk about Marcel the Shell again. Is that okay? Can I just
turn it around
back to
like,
that?
Let's just make a hard U-turn.
Like, is there anything else you want to talk about before I finish the episode with Marcel the Shell? Because that's what I want to do.
No, go for it.
Okay. We talked about it earlier, obviously. It's still delightful. It's still extremely charming. I wanted to talk about, for a second, you mentioned how Marcel creates a world, and we're shoved into this world, and there's not a lot of world building. I would disagree with that slightly, just because one thing I loved is all of the innovativeness when it comes to the tools and tools that Marcel uses to traverse his world and to navigate and to solve problems, I guess.
And I guess maybe I worded that wrong. It's not like there's not world building. It just feels like everything makes so much sense that you don't have to do any work to stretch your to stretch your imagination or any of that sense. It just, you look at it, it works. You're like, you're in. I'm in.
There's been plenty of other little people movies, like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or Stuart Little kind of stuff, where you see a smaller being acting like people and having to interact with this world. And I don't even know exactly what it is or what film it is. I don't even have a specific example, but I know there has been a number where there'll be like some sort of like elevator contraption and the little person gets in, they flip a switch, and then things happen without the audience's knowledge. And it's just like, oh man, that is very complex considering that it appears to be made out of Lego. But there's none of that with Marcel. No. Like the things that Marcel uses, the tools and inventions and stuff, are all practical, and you see all of it.
Yeah.
So, and I thought that was really cool too, is that it didn't ever feel like there was magic behind the scenes or something, that it was, that everything they were doing is makes sense in the context of the film, makes sense in the context of this person. Outside of the fact that there was a few things where I'm like, well, you'd probably need hands for that, and you don't have hands. So now, granted, you can sort of explain that away by the human that is there. What just did that little piece for them or did whatever. But I loved all the little extra stuff. And then the way the world interacts with Marcel. So there's I know there's spiders. I assume they're tarantulas, but I don't actually know. But there's spiders we see multiple times, and they don't really do much in terms of the film.
They're like spectators.
Yeah, but you see sort of the way that, okay, well, hold on, Marcel would have to interact with other things as well. We see Marcel interact with a squirrel. I think it's a squirrel.
A squirrel.
And the danger that potentially presents. We see Marcel interact with the dog, and again, the danger and the potential concerns of any of that. And I thought a lot of that was really, really, really well done.
The whole thing, again, because like all that weird practical stuff you're talking about, like if you went out and tried to build it, you could.
Yep. Yeah.
No, you're right. There's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing fantastical about it.
Sure.
It's I was thinking about the Flintstones and how they have those when they have the animals, the dinosaurs, take care and do something.
Oh, sure.
And it's like the bird becomes the record player, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So it's that. It's a weird comparison, but it is that because it is a lot of weird stuff happening, but it's done so well that you don't question it, and you immediately just the common sense. Works. And it's kind of a magical thing because
absolutely
within 10 minutes you stop questioning everything about the movie.
Totally,
and you're just living it. And I don't know if it's because of the way it's filmed with the documentary style, but you do feel like Dean.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of documentary style stuff, you still feel like you're watching a documentary. And I don't know how they pulled that off or how they made me feel that way, but it is incredible.
I think one of the big things is there's no voiceover. So it doesn't feel like there's a disembodied element to it that's sort of explaining the world to you. And that in a lot of cases, I find Dean reacts in a way that I would. That... he's making a film about Marcel, and Marcel's like, why don't you want to answer questions? And Dean's like, well, it's not about me, or, I don't like my voice. And I'm like, oh, those are normal human things. Like, that's probably how I'd react if I was talking to an anthropomorphic shell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they concentrate on the right things, I think.
It's awesome.
And, yeah, anyway, definitely go see Marcel the Shell. If you are a fan of the Russos, a fan of... of Chris Evans and of Ryan Gosling, do yourself a favor and don't watch The Gray Man.
Just watch Friday Night Lights instead.
No, don't do that either. Ugh.
It's great.
But, again, no shade, truly, if you watch The Gray Man and enjoy it.
Great as
absolutely. Wow. Like my wife enjoyed it, had a great time, but she also...
Oh, the bar is so low.
Oh, yeah. She likes a lot of things. And that's fine. Totally good to like things. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to be upset. Go
on camera,
things.
at least.
Yeah. Yeah, like all the things you want.
Just accept the fact you can get bagged on.
Yeah, just don't tell me about it. Yeah, that finishes off our A24 month. Hopefully this was a decent goodbye. And Ian, if you are still watching up until this point, we did some A24 content. You're welcome.
A whole month.
Yeah.
We did this for Ian?
Well, partially. So, don't say I never did anything for you.